Hello, Ingrid here from No More Noise Toronto, here to give you a quick summary on the meeting that we had with Toronto Public Health and kind of what we learned from all of that. We met with them last week. So we were joined by Joshua Murray, Senior Policy and Strategic Issues Advisor, and Aaron Mandel, Policy Development Officer. They gave a short presentation, and if you click on the image, you can go directly to a link of that presentation, or you can also click on the text below to have a listen to that. So what we learned from all of that is that their mandate is governed by the Provincial Healthy Environments and Climate Change Guideline it was written in 2018. In requirement 7 is the list of the things that they can focus on, and noise isn't listed. Their enforcement powers are under the Health Protection and Promotion Act, and noise is not listed in the act, and it's also not part of the mandatory program. So again, that's why they do not have any enforcement powers for noise. And most of their funding comes from the province, which has actually been trying to reduce their funding. So that's why they need to adhere to the provincial guidelines. And there are 4 big buckets that they look at, and those are mental health, physical health, sleep, and cardiovascular disease. So we've learned that what they can do is advise, consult, and influence from a health lens. They look at the consistent strength of evidence on noise pollution, and that is where they make their decisions from. They can also perform or do education on noise pollution. So they look at noise pollution across the population or population health, which means it improves health for everyone, just like drinking water, for example, or clean air. And they can advise on what level of decibel level noise is unhealthy. And they can support actions to reduce noise, but the ultimate decision-making body is City Council. And they can play a limited advocacy role in supporting provincial and federal levels doing more to protect us from noise. And they can also continue to assess the health impact of the noise bylaws that were recently changed. So what they can't do is enforcement. That is strictly municipal licensing and standards, or MLS. They can't get involved in individual events. In the meeting, many of us talked about waste collection noise or festivals or modified mufflers on vehicles. And they basically said they don't even look at that at all. And so I gave, there's 2 examples of this. And they aren't staffed to do noise exemption permit administration. Right now, that is the councillors. And they seem to be quite busy. And often if they haven't replied in 2 weeks, then the exemption is approved. So that's where Toronto Public Health could possibly be a better one, but they said they can't do that. So that would be under municipal licensing and standards, if anywhere. And we were also talking about a body that could coordinate the different aspects of what would be required to reduce noise in Toronto, such as coordinating between municipal licensing and standards data and the City of Toronto Police Services data and for moving vehicles. And they said that they wouldn't do that either. Maybe MLS would do that. We've since learned that it could be the city manager that would do that. They also don't control the complaints process. They do access 311 for evidence regarding our noise reports, but they do not control that process. They also can't say no to an action or policy. And they actually cannot measure noise. They access other studies. So where do we go for help was the question after all of that, because we learned what they can and can't do. So where do we as people go from help? And the answer was, well, from a systems point of view, call 311 and, basically contact the city. But as a note from us is that you can contact your counselor as well. Here is a link that will take you to a page that looks like this, where you put in your address and it will tell you who your counselor is. Your counselor is an important voice because they are the ones that end up being the decision-making body for most decisions. So after we went through all of that, we had the participants' comments. And basically what we said, well, if you're not looking at our individual experiences and you're only looking at population health, you're missing the pieces, because population health is made up of our individual experiences. And it seems like they do not have a cohesive voice, and really there is no cohesive voice regarding noise pollution, and they are not a part of that discussion. And so they are not a strong enough voice to protect us. So I think that's actually a place where No More Noise Toronto is coming in, is that we are that cohesive voice and we are trying to organize, and we are actually in many ways leading that discussion. So we want them to be a voice for us. And if they can't be that voice for us, we want them to be with us to support our cause and also to support us pushing up to other levels. Um, for example, they can't do this for us. We need to be that voice, and we need them to support us. So, for example, when the city of Toronto is asking for permission from the province to do a noise camera pilot, which would reduce the noise on our streets, we need them to actually be a supportive voice for that. And they said that that is a possibility for them to do. The other thing is that the wording of everywhere we hear vibrant city, and it seems to give permission to be loud, where vibrancy doesn't need to be loud. And so this is where the city seems to be missing our concerns. And then there was a last question about accessibility. And so we've learned there is no accessibility officer in the city of Toronto. And yet people that are, let's say, blind, for example, they require sound to navigate. And if the sound is so loud that it muffles their cues, that is an accessibility issue. For people who are autistic or on the autism spectrum or are neurodivergent, they are impacted by noise generally more than non-neurodivergent people. And so this is something that is also a miss from the city point of view. So now we have our requests. And so these are, after discussing with many people and looking at the report and having this conversation with Toronto Public Health, this is what we've landed on as our requests on a municipal level. That Toronto Public Health conduct an education campaign on the health impacts of noise for residents and workers. So people don't know that modified mufflers are illegal. People often don't know just simply about the health impacts of noise from amplified sound in a neighborhood or from leaf blowers. And so they need to know that. That's from the resident perspective. From the worker perspective, on the Ontario Waste Management Association needs to train their drivers that how loud noise is at night when they pick up garbage that is now 24/7, which has been allowed. Also for lawn care people, those people that are using the two-stroke engines, they're being subjected to not only noise pollution, but also air pollution because those are dirty machines. The next request is to employ technology such as area sound level monitoring to augment research and streamline the enforcement process while improving compliance and with noise bylaws. I've talked about this many times. On top of a light post, you can have an area sound level monitoring system that broadcasts the sound levels directly to the bylaw officers' desks. And so, for example, if there's a patio issue in the area, they could employ one of those area sound level monitoring devices. And so then let's say if there is a report from a resident, they can look at that particular point in time and go, yeah, they were above the sound level. They were above the bylaw guidelines. But then they can also look back and see what an ambient noise level is for that same area. So that's important because right now that involves two measurements from two police officers in people's homes. And then also municipally is to reduce the increasing noise levels in the city, that the city manager coordinate with other city divisions such as Toronto Public Health, Toronto Police Services, and others to effectively address the issue. There needs to be a cohesive body because noise uh, goes through many different committees and divisions at the city. So also we have federal and provincial requests. And so our requests here are to create policies that address the harmful effects of noise pollution on the Toronto public. The Toronto Board of Health should request that the province include harmful sound in the healthy environments and climate change guidelines. So I referenced that earlier. So in other words, expanding their mandate in that policy, in that guideline. And then also to add noise part of the mandatory, to make noise part of the mandatory programs in the Health Promotion and Protection Act in Section 5. And so again, this would be to increase their scope and their mandate so that they can actually do more. And then we also are asking that the Board of Health requests that the provincial and federal governments begin to monitor noise pollution like air pollution across Canada. So my understanding is that both the federal government and the provincial government monitor air pollution. And so we want them to duplicate that for noise. And then additionally, as noise pollution is much more localized than air pollution, they also need to investigate innovative ways of collecting noise data, such as through crowdsourced methods. Air pollution, for example, if you've got one area, let's say a fire, I mean, we all can see that it generally it goes over a wider area, geographical area, where noise It can be one noisy patio that isn't heard 2 blocks away. And so that's where noise pollution is much more localized. So they might need to look at doing some different methodologies and innovative ways of collecting that data. So finally, a little bit of a campaign update. We've met with Toronto Public Health. I've met with Municipal Licensing and Standards and the Chief of Staff for Councillor Moyes, who's the chair of the Board of Health. And they have heard us. They want to make very clear that they know that we have concerns. And I actually brought all of these requests to them already. So April 1st is a very busy day, and the meeting has to wrap up by 1 p.m. as there are doctors on the board who have to get back to work. And there's also another meeting item about addiction and homelessness that is, they're expecting to have a lot of deputations on as well. So they just want to kind of manage the day. And so deputations that are focused on our asks, which you can see it above in this presentation or at that link, are absolutely welcome. And I encourage you to do that. But if you feel that your particular noise experience is not maybe completely that fits within this mandate with the Board of Health and it's more of a bylaw issue, then you feel free to give this a miss. We do not need to pack the room. But your emails, more than welcome. Please send them, and you will be able to send them with our email campaign starting on Friday, March 28th until the morning of April 1st. And we're also going to give you a way that you can craft your own emails, either using ours as a template to start with, or absolutely you can just do your own. So finally, what you can do is send an email. Our campaign will be live on Friday. Please check out our websites for email templates and other information. It'll probably be listed under our campaign. Sign up for event in our noise calendar. Go to our resources page. We have some fun flyers that you can put up and post somewhere. And you can also sign up for noise news and that way be in the know. And lastly, you also can report the noise. So there's 4 different ways that you can make a noise report with the city. You can call 311, you can email them. They have an app that you can download, and they also on their website, and I've showed you in the image there how you can filter by noise, and then you can get all the different noise sources there. And also please contact your counselor about the noise so that they know it's a problem. Even if you don't get a response from them, they know then that your email is part of their system. And when it comes to make a vote on a motion in the city regarding noise, they might just vote in favor of it versus abstaining or saying no. So finally, thank you. Let's create a better Toronto by reducing noise.